All right, it's time for another Joshcast. It's happening. I'm depressed, so I guess things are status quo, which for me, I don't know. Maybe I should start to say I'm depressed, so things are great. And it's not even election day yet. This might be the highlight of the week. I had a friend of mine tell me, you got to learn to love uncertainty. And this is why, because on election day, there will be certainty. And I will be standing in that certainty, saying to myself, I preferred it when things were uncertain. I had a good set last night, and then two iffies. Well, one iffy, good set, one iffy set, one bad set. And the bad set was the last set, so now I'm stuck in that last bad set feeling. And I think the other thing that's weighing me down is the realization that all I'm really interested in doing is stand up, and living in a world where that's a tad more difficult than it used to be. Because I don't know if you guys have noticed. I don't know if you've looked out the window recently. I don't know if you've read the funny papers, but there is a pandemic, and I guess the thing is, I always try to have kind of two things going in my life, two irons in the fire, which is, okay, I'm going to work on stand-up, but I'm also going to, write this screenplay that's not going to go anywhere, or this novel that's not going to go anywhere. And now, I guess what I'm realizing is I don't have the desire to work on that other thing that gets my mind off of the stand-up. And I find that scary. I'm afraid to just focus on what I'm passionate about, because not everyone, because when I look at what other people are doing, it seems as though they have that other thing that they're working on, that they're not just doing stand-up. And sometimes the other thing is what makes the money. And right now, I'm just not motivated to work on something that's not stand-up. So I'm going to just work on stand-up and trust that everything will be okay. Which I'm trying to figure out where that came from. This notion of one person telling another person, don't worry, things will turn out okay. Because where has there been a precedent in history where things turned out okay? It seems like things turn out okay for a few people, and then for other people they don't. And I'm not even sure there's rhyme or reason to it. I think there's a lot of really nice people and things didn't turn out okay for them. But perhaps that is more than the brain can handle. So we just tell ourselves things will turn out okay. And maybe it has to do with belief system. Do I believe there's a God? Do I believe there's a logic to the universe? And I don't know that there's a God. But there do seem to be rules just if we talk pure physics, through which the universe operates. And somehow we are within that. And those rules, why those rules exist, why there is, I wouldn't call it order, but some fundamental physics constants. Whether that was created by someone or chance. I guess what I find fascinating is that within the sphere of chance, there's rules that guide chance. That I find fascinating. So I don't think God is a consciousness. God is a human-looking thing holding a book with notes about me, and that when I go and meet him, he and I are going to review my life, and then he's going to, I don't know, make a judgment. Rather, I do think there are forces of energy that are unifying. And that after death, the notion of the self and the ego and all of that is going to fall away, and what I am left with will be energy. Which is not something my ego wants to hear. My ego is very pissed off about that. My ego would prefer that in the next world, I still have a body and a separate consciousness and the ability to get booked for weekend dates. But the more I think about it, the more everything we feel really seems to fall in line with simple Darwinism. There we go. Not Darwinism. Darwini is someone else. Darwin came up with a theory of natural selection. Darwini the Pooh. Who originated, Darwini the Pooh and Winnie the Pooh both originated from a common Pooh Bear ancestor that we're not sure of. But at any rate, it makes sense to me that if you got two animals and one of them has a sense of, I don't want to die, I want to live on forever, I'm going to do whatever it takes not to die. And then another animal is like, oh, I'm sure I'll exist as pure consciousness wherever. I think the one that doesn't want to die is probably going to outrun the leopard, and the other one is going to join that consciousness a lot more quickly. So the fear of death, the need to procreate, the need to be remembered, it all seems like a logical outcropping of the need to survive, which comes from, the animals that survived over the centuries, over the millennia, being those animals that had the drive to survive. So at the end of the day, I guess what I'm saying is all of my neuroses are nothing special. And we can doll up my experience with all the fancy language I want. At the end of the day, it's just I'm just another monkey trying to get a banana, trying to mate with another monkey, and trying to do that as long as possible because that's my heritage. And from that conclusion, what can we draw? I think that what we can draw from that conclusion is I really need to have guests on this podcast. Maybe I'm not enough. I've been listening to Jesus Christ Superstar over and over again, and I don't know why. There's something about the mood of the music that is synonymous with what's happening. And I do like the one song, try not to get worried, da 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 da. Everything's all right now, everything's fine. Which she was trying to sing to calm down Jesus. And I think that was 2 days before he was crucified. Which kind of goes back to my original thesis of why are people saying it's going to be okay? Which is what I don't tell people. But then again, nobody ever asks me to console them, and I think this is why. Because I do not provide words of consolation. I would say, listen, everything may be okay or it may not be okay. And worrying about it probably won't make a difference. Actually, worrying about it, maybe for all I know, worrying about it will make it better. So maybe you should keep worrying about it. If you're worried, you're on your toes. You'll be prepared for what gets thrown at you. So I'd keep worrying. Everything is not going to be all right. Everything's not going to be all right. Try to be more worried. Try to freak out more. Try to get to the point where you can fall asleep at night. Yes, fall asleep at night. Yes, no, you can't. 'Cause they're coming to get you. And the electoral process is screwed. Close your eyes, but not for long, 'cause they're hunting you. Everything's not all right, yes. Everything's not all right, yes. So what am I doing with the stand-up? Well, I'm doing the Zoom shows. And I'm doing Zoom open mics. And I've only really done one kind of live, more of a production shoot than a show. And that's about it right now. And I'm torn as to whether or not to try to go figure out live shows. I'm not entirely sure how safe it is. So we just gotta. So I think I'm sticking for the most part with Zoom. And that's the plan at this point. I would still, I don't know, I guess I would feel better if I was working on the stand-up, but then there was something else I was working on too, like even if I never end up selling the screenplay, just working on it just so that I can, if I get frustrated with the stand-up, I can go work on something else that's adjacent. And I can't tell, well, yes, I can. I think that's, like I said, I'm not passionate about working on anything other than the stand-up. And I think to do that at this point maybe would be running away from my fear. And the fear is that I'll never be able to do stand-up again, or that I'll never be able to make a career of it. And perhaps it is time I face that fear head on by proclaiming to the world what I wish to do. And then the world will respond to me. Everything's not all right. There might not be a country tomorrow. I think that's a good place to end this podcast. I think that's where we're going to stop. That, and I've arrived at my destination. So there you go.